There is something really fascinating when it comes to creativity. And now you maybe even have noticed it by now, but there's always this magical experience, this magical moment where just a certain inspiration, a certain sound can evoke such a deep experience that one's brain can stop coming up with ideas. Now, you pretty much know this experience if you've been endeavoring in any kind of creative art. But there's always this moment, either of complete resistance, where you can't even get yourself to write a single word. Or just this moment when you just start writing and ideas keep pouring and pouring themselves and you just can't stop thinking about them. Everything is coming so naturally, and every thought tends to develop itself so easily and quickly that your body can keep up with it. Now, what is this really about? And more interestingly, to the people that are endeavoring themselves in a creative art, how can one induce oneself to it? Now, when you're talking about inspiration or creativity, what you're talking about is this induced state that we want to bring ourselves that would make us essentially desire unconsciously to come up with more and more ideas. As before the craft and the process where you come to want to create something but you don't know what to create. Essentially what we're dealing with is this kind of resistance that we don't want to work. That we have other reasons, other worries and other obstacles that we have to go through. Be it either self-esteem that you don't think you're good enough, be it either life's problems, be it either mental health issues or any other kind of obstacle. Now, when you're talking about the inspiration part, and it's that which causes us to desire to come up with ideas, it's never really just about the object or the sound or the beauty of the concept, but the meaning that certain experience that it brings to you. Now, I want to point out a very important sentence that you should remember when it comes to creativity, and it is mostly creativity is emotion driven. Either be it love, either be it fear, either be it hatred. When you have an in-depth emotional experience in connection to the work that you're creating, it's the nature of emotion to try to embrace itself and try to find a resolve, be it either symbolically through the work or any kind of where you try to find relief and this equilibrium within yourself. Now, in the case of art, when you're dealing with this kind of emotional, intense state of creativity, this our moment, you're trying to justify and manage a certain experience within yourself to try to find resolve by creating ideas. And in order to bring oneself into this kind of state and condition where the brain tends to come up with more and more and more ideas, it's to bring oneself into an environment which makes us believe unconsciously that the production of creativity will be the practice that will make us find the most resolve in. Now, this may sound a bit too psychoanalytical and a bit way too theoretical in this case, but just notice around the places where you tend to find ideas the most, be it either the shower or just early in the morning when you wake up and you have all these random ideas, all this memory about the things that you dreamed. But when you come into a situation like that's really stressful and that tends to demand other things from you, your mind will draw naturally towards the thing that seems will be the most desirable to it. Now, when you're in a stressful situation where you have to give a presentation or you get haunted by a dangerous animal, what your brain will naturally think about is not how can I come up with my next idea for my novel. What it will think about is how can I save myself from the current situation that I'm currently in? And this is the importance of a safe environment. And a safe environment is not just a place where you logically can think, alright, for the next few hours I won't be disturbed. But also find this emotional security where you don't have to worry about what will come up, or what we will create, or what will happen in the next few times. Now, we know it will be practically unrealistic, but you know when you have this intense experience where you try to create a certain experience, which we call inspiration, where something felt so good that we want to create it again. Now, by embracing this certain experience, we can figure out that the environment is what ultimately determines our creativity. So besides the experience of safety, what one is seeking when one is seeking inspiration is the experience of a deep, meaningful, and creative emotion to wish to recreate again. And so it's merely just a catch that we try to regain. As once you had the experience of absolute enjoyment in the process, at the board itself out naturally. It's like a snowball, where once you got up the hill, the rolling down will come easily. But it's always just figuring out how can I get the snowball or the boulder up in the mountain in the first place. And so, to stop being so theoretical about it and to give you more some practical steps, here's what you could actually do that could affect your creativity in the most essential way. And that is to set up an environment. By environment, I mean the workplace that you're working in. If you have a safe workplace where you know the only thing that you're doing is you're going to do your craft, or you have a soundtrack or some kind of music that you always listen to when you're creating something, it will be a lot easier once you familiarize yourself and get used in the creative work, if you have some kind of pattern to it. Now, you already hear this advice, but let me get deeper into it why it's so essential. When you're working on creativity or any intellectual endeavor, what we are using is not necessarily the conscious experience, but we try to bring our subconscious into a position that would enable us in the creation of those ideas. So what you're dealing with is not necessarily this conscious management, where we try to manage everything, put everything in a set of place that it means to it. You're not dealing with the organization of things necessarily, but we're dealing with the emotional experience. How our workplace makes us feel, how our current life what our current life tends to signify to us the most, and what our workplace tends to signify the most. So even if the idea of a perfect workplace seems like an organized place, it could be also a really messed up place, where nothing is organized, but the meaning and the sense making you get out of it is the one that will enable you to get yourself to express creativity the most. And so what you're talking about here is the induction of desire. But another interesting and habitual way that's not only good for your mental health, but also really great at work on your creativity, is to try to embrace an emotion. And you know this essential experience where a therapist says, if you're feeling kind of anger or you're feeling kind of anxiety, try to make something out of it. Try to use the anxiety to create something beautiful. Let's say you're really pissed off, you could write a poetry or you could write a song. And even though this advice is so common and it's almost annoying listening to it, what you're doing with this when you're trying to put our experience into a certain kind of art or craft is we try to embrace the emotion through this kind of craft instead of trying to get rid of it. As once you embrace this emotion, you can again reach this deep experience within the emotion. And the moment you begin to deepen your experience within an emotion, it will be the moment where you come to recover from that emotion, because you're actually facing it instead of trying to avoid it. And this is where the mental health effect comes in. So, to sum it up, create a safe environment that makes you desire to come up with better ideas. And also use your emotions not as an obstacle, but create them as a tool to create better art. If you know to get better in contact with your inner experience, you will be better able to come up with contact to create this emotion into a work of art. Whereas art is essentially based on the creationary experience of emotions. As the deeper our experience comes to be, the better we will be able to share it with other people. Thanks. Have a nice day.